Now taking another look at what we just did with our calculator. I'm going to go back. I still have those lists in there. If I hit stat, calculate the one variable stat, and go back to L1, it gives me all sorts of stuff. Right now, all we know in here is we have X bar. You might recognize that SX is a standard deviation or sample standard deviation. N means the number of items, so there was 12 data points. And then it gives us these numbers here. The minimum X, the smallest value, Q1, which is our first quartile, they calculated that for us. The median, which is actually the same as Q2. And then Q3 is the third quartile, which they calculated for us. And then the max value, 79. So it goes smallest, largest, you can call this Q1 first quartile. It's also the 25th percentile. The median is Q2 or the 50th percentile, and Q3 or the 75th percentile, and the max is the 100th percentile. So 0, 25, 50, 75, 100th percentile. Now take a look at page 7 of our notes now. Some of this will make a little bit more sense. Measures of spread. The range of our value is the maximum minus the minimum value, the biggest minus the smallest. The IQR, or interquartile range, is the distance between the first and third quartiles. You do Q3 minus Q1. And a lot of people use the interquartile range when there's outliers. Because if there's outliers, they're going to be more towards the smallest or the largest values. So if you just go from Q1 to Q3, you eliminate outliers from the conversation. So if there are outliers, don't use the range, use the IQR, interquartile range. Now, a box plot. A box plot shows the middle 50% for comparison. It shows skewness or symmetry. The 5-number summary is what we use to make a box plot. So the 5-number summary is those numbers that I showed you from the bottom of the one variable stats. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 from the minimum, first quartile, median, third quartile, and max. That's the 5-number summary. So it's the minimum, the first quartile, the median, the third quartile, and the maximum. The Q1 is the median of the min and the median. Q3 is the median of the median and the max. So it's the one directly between those two, and this is the one directly between those two. We use this to describe a skewed distribution or a distribution with strong outliers. If you want to see a box plot, I will have one for you a little bit later at the end of the notes. Outliers. Call an observation an outlier if it falls more than 1.5 times the IQR above Q3 or below Q1. So what you have to do is you have to figure out what your 5-number summary is. You'll have your minimum, you'll have Q1, your median, Q3, and your maximum. Take these two and do Q3 minus Q1. That's your interquartile range. Take this number and you multiply it by 1.5. Now look at all the observations. Once you do this, you do 1.5 times the IQR. Go add that to Q3. So you do Q3 plus 1.5 IQR. If your number is above this, it's an outlier. We do the same thing for below. So we go to Q1 and we subtract 1.5 times the IQR, and if our number is below that, it's an outlier. So that's the calculation that we spoke of earlier in the notes, where I said we would get to that. It's on page 44 if you want to walk through an example. And then we have modified box plot. Modified box plot shows outliers as isolated points and moves upper or lower quarter boundary to show less variability of distribution. There's an example on page 46. In the next video, if you click on it, I'm going to show you how to use the calculator to create a box plot, and then how to create a modified box plot by just hitting one more button, and that will show us if there's outliers. So if you choose this, it will show outliers. So you won't have to actually calculate. You won't have to do that above. So on the next video, I will show you how to create a box plot and modified box plot using your TI-84.